I stepped into the grand ballroom, the soft twinkling of crystal chandeliers and the gentle murmurs of conversation enveloping me. My colleagues and friends had gathered to celebrate my retirement after decades of hard work and dedication to the marketing firm. As I scanned the room, my gaze fell upon my stepdaughter, Daphne, chatting animatedly with a group of younger guests. Daphne's vibrant presence couldn't be missed, her designer dress hugging her slender frame, her perfectly coiffed blonde hair framing her delicate features. She exuded an air of confidence, her charisma captivating those around her. A pang of pride swelled within me, remembering how warmly she had welcomed me into their lives when I married her father, Tom. As I approached to greet her, the jovial atmosphere took an abrupt turn. Daphne's words, laced with contempt, cut through the air like a knife. "Can you believe they're throwing this lavish party for that old hag? She's a glorified saleswoman, really. It's pathetic how desperate she is for attention." The room fell silent, all eyes fixed on us as the weight of her words sank in. My heart raced, a mixture of hurt and anger coursing through my veins. Daphne's cruel remarks stung deeply, shattering the illusion of our once warm relationship. "How dare you speak about me like that?" I demanded, my voice trembling with barely contained emotion. "After everything I've done for you and your father, this is the gratitude I receive?" Daphne's eyes widened momentarily, as if surprised by my confrontation, before a smirk played across her lips. "Oh, please, you act like you're some kind of martyr, but we both know you're just a trophy wife desperate to hold on to my father's fortune." The gravity of her accusation hung heavy in the air, and I could see the disbelief etched on the faces of those around us. Tom, my husband of 5 years, remained silent, his expression unreadable. In that moment, I realized the depth of Daphne's resentment towards me, and the facade of our family had crumbled. The celebration had turned into a battleground, exposing the cracks in our relationships that had been carefully concealed for far too long. I sank into the plush leather armchair, the events of the retirement party still weighing heavily on my mind. Daphne's cruel words had left a scar, one that would take time to heal. As I nursed a glass of red wine, my thoughts drifted back to the beginning of my journey with Tom and his daughter. It had been 5 years since Tom and I tied the knot, 2 lonely souls seeking companionship in the twilight of our lives. A successful entrepreneur, Tom had been widowed years earlier, left to raise his only child, Daphne, on his own. Initially, Daphne seemed warm and welcoming, embracing me with open arms. "I'm so happy Dad found someone like you," she had said, her eyes sparkling with sincerity. "It's been just the 2 of us for so long, and I know how much he's missed having a partner." Her words had filled me with hope, believing that we could become a true family, united by love and understanding. Little did I know that beneath Daphne's charming exterior lay a web of deceit and manipulation. The first cracks in our relationship began to show when I noticed Daphne's casual disrespect towards me. Snide remarks and eye rolls became commonplace, her behavior becoming increasingly dismissive and condescending. Don't take it personally, Marcella," Tom would say, brushing off my concerns. "She's just going through a phase. She'll come around." But Daphne's actions only escalated, her disdain for me becoming more apparent with each passing day. It was as if she resented my presence in her father's life, seeing me as a threat to her position. "You're not my real mother, you know," she had spat one day, her words dripping with venom. "No matter how hard you try, you'll never replace her." The sting of her words cut deep, but I remained resolute, determined to win her over with patience and kindness. Little did I know that my stepdaughter's animosity ran deeper than I could have ever imagined. As I swirled the ruby liquid in my glass, my mind raced with the possibilities of what could lie ahead. Daphne had shown her true colors, and the once pristine facade of our family had shattered. I knew that I could no longer ignore the growing rift between us, for the sake of my own sanity and the love I held for Tom. It was time to face the harsh reality that the sweet, loving girl I had once known was gone, replaced by a spiteful, manipulative woman hell-bent on driving a wedge between me and her father. And as I took a sip of the rich, full-bodied wine, I steeled my resolve, determined to uncover the truth behind Daphne's actions, no matter the cost. The following weeks were a whirlwind of suspicion and unease. Daphne's outburst at my retirement party had lifted the veil, exposing the true depths of her contempt for me. I found myself constantly on edge, scrutinizing her every move, searching for clues to unravel the mystery behind her hatred. It was during a routine review of our finances that I stumbled upon a startling revelation. Among the itemized statements, a series of charges stood out. Lavish purchases at high-end boutiques and indulgent spa retreats, all billed to a credit card in my name. "Tom, did you authorize these expenses?" I asked, my heart pounding as I presented him with the evidence. He furrowed his brow, studying the statements intently. "No, absolutely not. These charges are news to me." A sinking feeling settled in the pit of my stomach as the realization dawned on me. Daphne. It had to be her doing. "That little snake," I muttered under my breath, anger coursing through my veins. Tom's brow furrowed deeper, his expression a mix of confusion and disbelief. Now, let's not jump to conclusions. Maybe there's been some kind of mistake." I shook my head adamantly. "No mistake, Tom. This has Daphne's fingerprints all over it. She's been using my credit card to fund her extravagant lifestyle behind our backs." As the words left my lips, Daphne sauntered into the room, her perfectly manicured nails tapping away at her phone screen. "What's all the fuss about?" she inquired innocently, her eyes briefly flickering up to meet mine. I didn't hesitate, thrusting the incriminating statements in her direction. "Care to explain these charges, Daphne? Or should we just add fraud and deceit to the list of your offenses?" For a brief moment, her cool composure faltered, a flicker of panic crossing her delicate features. But just as quickly, it was replaced by a sly grin. "Oh, those?" she responded nonchalantly. "Didn't you authorize those purchases, Marcella? I distinctly remember you saying I could use your card for a few personal items." The brazen lie hung in the air, and I could feel the frustration building within me. Tom, ever the peacekeeper, attempted to defuse the situation. "Now, girls, let's not argue. I'm sure there's a reasonable explanation for all of this." But I wasn't about to back down, not this time. Daphne had crossed a line, and I was determined to expose her deception, no matter the cost. "Don't play dumb with me, Daphne," I shot back, my voice trembling with barely contained fury. "This is a clear pattern of manipulation and fraud, and mark my words, I will get to the bottom of it, even if I have to drag the truth out of you myself." Daphne's eyes narrowed, her lips curling into a condescending smirk. "Oh, Marcella, always so dramatic. But go ahead, play detective if it makes you feel better. Just don't come crying to me when you realize you're chasing shadows." As she sauntered out of the room, her haughty laughter echoing in her wake, I clenched my fists tightly. The gloves were off, and the battle lines had been drawn. Daphne's deceit ran deeper than I had ever imagined, and I knew that I had to act swiftly to uncover the truth before her web of lies consumed us all. The revelation of Daphne's financial deception was just the tip of the iceberg. In the days that followed, she unveiled a new scheme, one that threatened to upend our lives even further. "I've been working on a brilliant business idea," she announced over dinner one evening, her eyes alight with excitement. "A luxury boutique hotel chain catering to the ultra-rich and famous." Tom's face lit up with pride, ever the doting father. "That's wonderful, sweetheart. I can't wait to hear more about it." I, however, remained skeptical, my distrust of Daphne's motives running deep. "And how exactly do you plan to finance this venture?" I inquired, my tone laced with suspicion. Daphne flashed me a saccharine smile, her eyes glinting with mischief. "Well, that's where you two come in. I was hoping you could provide the seed money to get things started." The audacity of her request left me speechless. After her blatant misuse of my credit card, she had the nerve to ask for more money? "Absolutely not," I stated firmly, shaking my head. "Not until you can prove this is a legitimate business endeavor and not just another scheme to line your pockets." Daphne's expression soured, her mask of innocence slipping. "How dare you accuse me of such things? This is a golden opportunity, and you're too blind to see it." Tom, ever the peacekeeper, tried to calm the rising tensions. Now, let's not get ahead of ourselves. Daphne, perhaps you could provide us with a detailed business plan and financials. That way, we can evaluate the viability of your idea." Daphne's eyes narrowed, and she let out an exasperated sigh. "Fine. If that's what it takes to convince you, Marcella, then so be it. Just don't come crying to me when you miss out on the chance of a lifetime." As she stormed off, I couldn't shake the nagging feeling that something was amiss. Daphne's sudden interest in launching a business venture seemed too convenient, too perfectly timed with her credit card misdeeds. That's when it hit me. Perhaps this was all part of a larger scheme, a way to manipulate Tom and me into funding her extravagant lifestyle under the guise of a legitimate business endeavor. I knew I had to tread carefully to uncover the truth behind Daphne's latest ploy before it was too late. Tom's unwavering faith in his daughter had blinded him to her true nature, and it was up to me to protect us from her machinations. Over the next few days, I delved deeper into Daphne's past, scouring every available record for any clues or red flags. What I uncovered chilled me to the bone, a trail of broken promises, failed business ventures, and countless disgruntled investors left in her wake. It became clear that Daphne was a master manipulator, skilled in the art of charm and deception. Her latest, brilliant idea was nothing more than a smokescreen, a way to lure Tom and me into her web of lies and plunder our hard-earned wealth. As I sat in the dimly lit study, the weight of my discoveries bearing down on me, I knew what I had to do. Daphne's deceit could no longer go unchecked. It was time to confront her head-on, to expose her true motives, and put an end to her toxic influence on our family once and for all. My investigation into Daphne's past revealed a disturbing pattern, a web of deceit and manipulation spun to ensnare wealthy, unsuspecting victims. As I pored over the documents and testimonies, a sickening realization dawned upon me. Daphne's lavish lifestyle and grandiose business plans were funded by a series of calculated seductions. She would charm her way into the lives of affluent young professionals, spinning tales of love and commitment, all the while bleeding them dry financially. Once her victims were drained of their resources, she would vanish without a trace, leaving behind a trail of broken hearts and empty bank accounts. The evidence was damning, a litany of betrayed ex-partners, each more devastated than the last. Some had lost their life savings, while others found themselves mired in debt, their futures mortgaged by Daphne's insidious schemes. As I pieced together the sordid details, my heart raced with a mixture of anger and disgust. How could someone be so callous, so devoid of empathy? And how had Tom remained oblivious to his daughter's true nature for so long? I knew I had to confront him, to make him see the truth before it was too late. But deep down, I feared his unwavering devotion to Daphne would blind him to her malicious ways. "Tom, we need to talk," I said, my voice steeled with determination as I approached him in the study. He looked up from his paperwork, a quizzical expression on his face. "What is it, dear?" Without preamble, I laid out the evidence before him, the financial records, the testimonies, the damning trail of broken lives left in Daphne's wake. "Your daughter is a con artist, Tom, a master manipulator who has been preying on innocent people for years, bleeding them dry for her own selfish gain." He recoiled as if struck, his brow furrowing in disbelief. "That's simply not possible. Daphne may have her flaws, but she's not a criminal." I shook my head adamantly, my frustration mounting. "Open your eyes, Tom. The proof is right here, plain as day. She's been using her charms to seduce and exploit wealthy men and women, leaving them destitute while she lives like a queen." Tom's expression hardened, his jaw clenching as he struggled to process the accusations against his beloved daughter. "This is absurd," he muttered, his voice thick with emotion. "Daphne would never stoop to such depravity. You're allowing your personal grudge to cloud your judgment." In that moment, I realized the depth of his denial. Daphne had him so thoroughly ensnared in her web of lies that he was incapable of seeing the truth, even when it was staring him in the face. Undeterred, I pressed on, determined to shatter the illusion she had so carefully crafted. "Think about it, Tom. Her sudden interest in starting a luxury hotel chain, her insistence on us funding it, it's all part of her scheme. She's trying to bleed us dry, just like she's done to countless others." His expression wavered, a flicker of doubt crossing his features, but just as quickly it was replaced by steely resolve. "Enough of this nonsense," he declared, rising from his chair. "I won't have you slandering my daughter any longer. If you can't accept her, then perhaps it's time you left." As he stormed out of the study, the weight of his ultimatum hung heavy in the air. In that moment, I knew that confronting Daphne head-on was no longer an option. Her hold over Tom was too strong. If I stood any chance of exposing her deception and protecting our family, I would need to take a more strategic approach. With a renewed sense of determination, I began to formulate a plan, a grand scheme to unveil Daphne's true nature and strip away the facade she had so carefully constructed. It was time for her to face the consequences of her actions, and I would stop at nothing to ensure justice was served. The annual Metropolis Business Gala was the perfect stage to unveil Daphne's web of deceit. As the city's elite gathered in their finest attire, I knew this was my chance to expose her true nature to the world. For weeks, I had meticulously planned every detail, reaching out to several of Daphne's former victims and convincing them to come forward. Armed with their testimonies and evidence, I was determined to shatter the illusion she had so carefully crafted. As Tom and I made our grand entrance, I scanned the opulent ballroom, searching for Daphne's familiar face. There she was, radiant in a designer gown, effortlessly charming a group of potential investors with her silver-tongued lies. My heart raced with a mixture of anticipation and trepidation, but I steeled my nerves. It was now or never. Excusing myself from Tom's side, I made my way to the stage, the clicks of my heels echoing through the hushed murmurs of the crowd. All eyes were on me as I grasped the microphone, my knuckles white with determination. "Ladies and gentlemen," I began, my voice ringing out loud and clear, "I regret to inform you that we have a con artist in our midst." Gasps and murmurs rippled through the audience as I zeroed in on Daphne, her expression frozen in a mask of feigned innocence. For years, this woman has been preying on the vulnerable, spinning tales of love and opportunity, only to bleed them dry once their usefulness has expired. Daphne's eyes narrowed, her lips curling into a sneer as she realized the jig was up. "How dare you make such slanderous accusations?" she spat, her voice dripping with venom. But I was prepared for her theatrics. With a wave of my hand, a group of Daphne's former victims emerged from the crowd, their faces etched with pain and determination. One by one, they stepped forward, sharing their harrowing tales of betrayal and financial ruin at the hands of my devious stepdaughter. "She promised me the world, told me she loved me," sobbed a young man, his voice thick with emotion. "But it was all a lie. She drained my savings, my inheritance, and left me with nothing." Another victim, a successful businesswoman, recounted how Daphne had conned her out of a substantial investment, leaving her company teetering on the brink of collapse. As the testimonies piled on, the atmosphere in the ballroom shifted, the once glamorous event taking on a somber tone. Daphne's carefully cultivated facade was crumbling before our very eyes. "You're all delusional," she cried, her composure slipping as she lashed out in desperation. "These are baseless accusations from bitter, jealous people." But her protests fell on deaf ears, for the evidence was overwhelming. Financial records, emails, and even surveillance footage laid bare the intricate web of lies she had woven. Tom, who had remained silent throughout the ordeal, finally stepped forward, his expression a mix of anguish and disappointment. "Enough, Daphne," he said, his voice heavy with pain. "The jig is up. How could you do this? How could you betray us all like this?" For a fleeting moment, Daphne's mask slipped, revealing a flicker of vulnerability, but just as quickly it hardened into a cold, defiant glare. "You're all fools," she snarled, her eyes burning with contempt. "I did what I had to do to get what I deserved, and I'd do it all again in a heartbeat." As security escorted her from the premises, the weight of her deceit hung heavy in the air. The once vibrant gala had been reduced to a somber reckoning, a harsh reminder that even the most polished facades can crumble under the weight of the truth. And as I stood there, surrounded by the wreckage of Daphne's lies, I couldn't help but feel a sense of vindication. Justice had been served, and the karma she had so carelessly sown had finally come full circle. In the aftermath of Daphne's public exposure, the fallout was swift and merciless. The once charming facade she had so carefully cultivated lay in tatters, replaced by a harsh reality that none of us could ignore any longer. Tom, devastated by the revelation of his daughter's deceit, took immediate action. With a heavy heart, he cut off all financial support, leaving Daphne to fend for herself in the wake of her misdeeds. "I can no longer enable your behavior, Daphne," he said, his voice trembling with a mix of sadness and resolve. The lies, the manipulation, it all ends today. Daphne, defiant to the bitter end, scoffed at his ultimatum. "You're making a grave mistake, old man," she spat, her eyes blazing with fury. "Without me, you're nothing." But Tom remained steadfast, his resolve unwavering in the face of her venom. "No, Daphne, it is you who have become nothing, a hollow shell of greed and deception. I only pray that one day you can find redemption." In the days that followed, Daphne's once lavish lifestyle crumbled around her. Without her ill-gotten gains to fund her extravagances, she was forced to confront the harsh realities of her actions. Yet, even in the face of her downfall, she remained defiant, lashing out at anyone who dared to cross her path. "You'll all pay for this," she seethed, her words dripping with venom as she accosted me in the grocery store parking lot. "Mark my words, Marcella, you and your pathetic husband will rue the day you turned against me." I met her venomous glare with a steely resolve, unflinching in the face of her threats. "The only one who will pay is you, Daphne. You brought this upon yourself with your lies and greed." Her lips curled into a sneer, and for a moment I thought she might lash out physically. But just as quickly, she regained her composure, her eyes glinting with a cold, calculated fury. "You may have won this battle, but the war is far from over," she hissed before turning on her heel and storming off, leaving a trail of whispers and stares in her wake. As the weeks passed, Daphne's attempts to regain her former glory became increasingly desperate. She tried to spin the narrative, painting herself as the victim of a vast conspiracy orchestrated by yours truly. But her efforts were futile. The evidence of her misdeeds was overwhelming, and those she had once manipulated and betrayed were now her most vocal detractors. One by one, her former accomplices and enablers turned their backs on her, unwilling to risk being dragged down by her toxic influence. And through it all, Tom remained resolute, his love for his daughter tempered by the harsh reality of her actions. "I never wanted things to end up this way," he confided in me one evening, his eyes heavy with sorrow. "But she left me no choice. The Daphne I knew and loved is gone, replaced by a stranger consumed by greed and manipulation." As I held his hand, offering what little comfort I could, I knew that the road ahead would be long and arduous. But deep down, I felt a sense of relief that Daphne's web of lies had finally been unraveled, and that justice had been served. For too long, her deceit had cast a dark shadow over our family, poisoning our relationships and eroding our trust. But now, with her machinations exposed and her influence diminished, there was a chance to rebuild, to forge a new path forward, free from the toxic grip of her manipulation. And as I looked into Tom's eyes, I saw a glimmer of hope, a promise that together we could emerge from this ordeal stronger and more resilient than ever before. The weeks following Daphne's downfall were a whirlwind of emotions. Tom and I found ourselves navigating the aftermath of her deception, grappling with the harsh realities that had been laid bare. For Tom, the betrayal cut deep, leaving him questioning everything he thought he knew about his beloved daughter. There were moments when the weight of it all seemed too much to bear, and he would retreat into a somber silence, lost in the memories of happier times. "I don't know where I went wrong," he would lament, his eyes heavy with sorrow. "How could I have been so blind to the monster she had become?" In those moments I would take his hand, offering what little comfort I could. "You loved her unconditionally, Tom. That's not a fault. It's a testament to the depths of your devotion as a father." Slowly but surely, we began to pick up the pieces, leaning on each other for strength and support. It was a gradual process, fraught with setbacks and emotional turmoil, but through it all, our bond only grew stronger. As for Daphne, her life had taken a decidedly different turn. Stripped of her financial resources and cut off from her former enablers, she found herself adrift, forced to confront the consequences of her actions head-on. Gone were the designer clothes and lavish vacations, replaced by a harsh reality of living paycheck to paycheck. It was a humbling experience, one that seemed to chip away at her once impenetrable armor of arrogance and entitlement. "How the mighty have fallen," I overheard someone whisper as Daphne trudged past, her once immaculate appearance replaced by a disheveled, weary demeanor. Part of me felt a twinge of pity for her, witnessing the depths of her downfall. But I quickly reminded myself of the pain and destruction she had wrought, and that this was merely the natural consequence of her own actions. As the months wore on, Tom and I worked tirelessly to repair the fractures in our relationship, to rebuild the trust and intimacy that Daphne's deception had shattered. It was a slow, arduous journey, but one that ultimately brought us closer together. "I don't know what I would have done without you," Tom confessed one evening as we sat together on the patio, sipping wine under the warmth of the setting sun. "You've been my rock through all of this, Marcella. I owe you everything." I squeezed his hand, offering him a reassuring smile. "We're in this together, Tom. No matter what comes our way, we'll face it as a team." In those quiet moments, I found myself reflecting on the trials we had endured, the battles we had fought to protect our family from Daphne's toxic influence. It had been a long, arduous road, but in the end, we had emerged victorious, our love and resilience triumphing over her web of lies and manipulation. And as I gazed out over the horizon, watching the sun dip below the skyline, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. The storm had passed, and while the scars of Daphne's betrayal might never fully heal, we had found the strength to move forward, to embrace a new chapter in our lives, one defined by honesty, trust, and a deep, abiding love that no amount of deception could ever extinguish.